Okay, so let's get moving. Come forwards on your chair. Make sure your feet are about hip width apart. And just think about balancing your pelvis so that you're not slumping, but you're also not sitting too arched. Think about balancing your pelvis. You might think about lifting up out of your hips a little bit, maybe widening your shoulders, and maybe lengthening the back of your neck. You might also like to take a breath in and then breathe out. We're going to start with a forward flexion. So everybody rolling forwards, just taking your arms down towards your feet, feeling that beautiful flexion stretch through your low back. You might feel it in the back of your shoulders. Come back up tall. You're going to bring your hands behind your head and we're lifting into a thoracic extension. So this time, try not to arch your low back. Think about stretching through your mid back. And come back to your mid position. Take your arms out to the side, take your arms up tall above your head. You might have your palms together. If you can, see if you can make a flame. And then you're going to stretch to one side. Come up tall, and you're going to stretch to the other side. And come up tall. Separate your hands. This time bring your fingertips behind your ears. Draw your shoulders back, draw your elbows back. And just now make sure you're not arching your low back. Make sure you're nice and balanced. Bring your hands out to the side. Clasp your hands behind your back. You're going to clasp your hands together, pull your hands down to your buttocks and then pull them away from you towards the back of your chair. And that should be a really beautiful stretch in through the front of your chest. We get really tight through the front of our chest when we sit all day, particularly working at computers, driving cars, things like that. And coming out of that stretch. I want you now to bring your feet together and your knees together. Try and keep them glued together. Bring two hands onto the front of your chest. And we're going to rotate round to one side. When you can't go any further, put one hand on the outside of your front leg, the other hand comes round to find your chair and use two hands to rotate round into a beautiful thoracic rotation. You might hold it there for a couple of breaths. And let's come out of it and going the other way. Find that sternum again. Rotate round to one side. When you can't go any further, one hand on the outside of your front leg, the other hand comes round to find the back of your chair and use two hands to rotate round to the side. Again, you might hold it there for a couple of breaths. And when you're ready, coming out of it. We're taking the stretches down now into our legs, so just bring one foot forward. You're going to hold onto the chair so you don't fall off the front and just folding at your hips. With your foot flexed, you'll feel this stretch in your calf and your hamstring. With that foot pointed, you'll feel it just in your hamstring. You can choose what's most comfortable for you or perhaps where you feel you really need that stretch. And come back up tall. Let's swap legs. Other leg forward, still holding onto that chair. Fold at your hips. Once again, if your foot is pointed, you'll feel it just in your hamstring. If that foot is flexed, you'll feel it in your hamstring and your calf. And come back up tall. We're going to take it into a buttock stretch now. So I want you to float one leg up. Reach your hand between your thighs, take hold of your ankle and pop that ankle on top of your other knee and lift up out of your hips. For some of you, that will be all you need to do and you'll be feeling a really beautiful stretch in your buttock. For some of you, you might need to lean forwards, fold at your hips to get that beautiful stretch. You should not feel this in your hip or your groin. If you're feeling this in your hip or your groin, just pop your hand underneath your knee and gently bring your knee towards your chest. And that should bring the stretch round into your buttock and out of your hip and groin. Choose what works best for you with that stretch. And then coming up out of it and float that leg down. Let's swap sides. Float the other leg up, Reach your hand between your thighs, pop that ankle on top of your knee, lift up out of your hips. For some of you, just hold it there. Some of you might bring it forwards, and some of you might need to bring that knee towards your chest just slightly. And coming out of it. We're going to take it now into a hip flexor stretch, really important when you're doing a lot of sitting. So I'm just going to swivel ever so slightly on my chair. In fact, we might all swivel. Bring one knee back behind you. You're aiming for a straight line from your shoulder to your hip to your knee. You're going to push that back heel away from you, and you should feel a beautiful stretch in the front of this thigh. You might like to squeeze your buttock and make it a slightly stronger stretch. I'm holding onto my chair here. Jim isn't. He might have better balance than me. You can hold onto the chair if you want to. You don't need to if you're feeling nice and stable. Let's swap sides. Come back to the middle. I'm going to swivel just slightly and pop my other foot back this time. Push that back heel away. Again, straight line from your shoulder to your hip to your knee. Some of you might like to squeeze that bottom cheek. Again, holding onto the chair if you need to for balance. And coming back out of it. We're going to do an adductor stretch or an inside thigh stretch, really important when we do a lot of sitting. So take your feet wide and you're going to just use your hands to gently push your knees apart. Some of you might be able to lean forward slightly, and you might even like to press one hand into one knee and just drop your shoulder. Because I've gone one way, I'm going to go the other way now, so push that knee back and drop that shoulder. And let's come out of it. Bring those feet back again. So your feet are on the floor, hip width apart, and we're just going to do a neck stretch. So take one ear towards your shoulder. Come back up tall, other side, ear towards your shoulder. Come back up tall, take your nose or your chin towards your chest. And last stretch, looking up to the ceiling. And come back to the middle. Very last thing, take your arms out to the side. Cross your arms in front of you so you cross at the elbows, and then bend your elbows. If you can, interconnect those fingers. Some of you will be able to, some of you won't, and then lift through your elbows. And this should give you a really beautiful stretch in the back of your shoulders. It should not reproduce shoulder pain at all. If this reproduces shoulder pain, you don't need to do this one. Drop it down, untwist your pretzel, and swap other arm on top. Bend, interconnect those fingers, and lift at your elbows. Lower those elbows, arms out to the side, and that's just getting moving and sitting.